So we need two 45s over here. So the first one goes here, the 45-degree angle, 135 on here, and then we delete the pipe. Then we make sure the fitting is 45. It's about 44 and a half, and it's because it has a slope. So we go over here and divide these two up, but keep them in the same direction and change the angle to 45 exact, although 1 or 2 degrees doesn't make a whole lot of difference. Alright, then I'll go over here and using tap, I'll connect the fitting to the pipe. But as you can see, this part is actually protruding out of the wall, so let's move it in. And then once again, I'll go over here and using the draw line tool, I'll bring this over here and then copy the fitting. And then I'll connect these two up using the drag and the tap to find the connection point. All right, let's just disconnect it one more time and connect it again. And there we go. And then we can go up here and using the draw pipe option, you know what, let's delete this and start the pipe from up and come down. All right, so now I'll connect the pipe to the fitting down, then select the pipe itself and edit it to, cancel this. Let's try this one more time. So we go up here and select the pipe that we've just created. And then before editing it, I'll just add to its length and increase its size. Alright, then we need to move it up a bit so it goes over here. Alright, then I'm going to create a reference line right over here. So we start from below the pipe and draw it all the way up here. And then we can connect the pipe to the reference line in order to have it be completely vertical. And then I can create a pipe horizontally over here. Ctrl Z, then delete the reference line. Let's try this again. So we draw the pipe horizontally so that we can get a three-way fitting, and then we delete the pipe. Then we can put the height of the fitting, the middle of it, on 40 centimeters, which is exactly where the sink goes. And from this point on, we have the vent. So in order to design the vent, we can put the system type on vent, and then we can preserve the space from here as the vent. For the vent pipe, we can put the diameter on 50 millimeters, and then we can draw the pipe from here upwards. But if we go any higher, we're going to hit a window. So I'll open up the visibility graphics menu and go to the Revit links and check the architectural and structural files and OK. And then we go over here in the 3D view and select this. Alright, then let me just increase the depth so we can see where it is. As you can see, this goes up into the window itself, which is why we use a 45-degree angle to go around the window and up and move from there. So let me just go to the plan, and there, using the section tool, I'll make a cut over here. Now let's select the cut itself and straighten it out. And then after that, we can change the direction of the cut using the flip. Then I'll move the depth to right here, and then we select the go to view option. So it's right here. Now I can open the cut up, and let's just go back to the plan. And here we can preferably draw the pipe right in the middle of this. Let me just create a reference over here. We can put the cut over here so we can be sure that the pipe goes through this point exactly. So right click and go to view. So now I can select this pipe over here. And if you look at the bottom section, all of these have been assigned as vents, although we want this point on only to be the vent. So I'll separate these two, then select the part below over here. Then from the mechanical section, we'll put the type on sanitary. We need to put all of these on sanitary, then go up here and delete this. Then go up here and select this and put it on vents. There we go. Now I can select the connector and bring it over here and connect it to the pipe so that we won't have to touch the pipes below. And now if I go over here and right click and select browse and open up the system browser, we can see the items that we created, including the drain, the sanitary, and the vent as well. And we can also see the different rows that we have for each of them, the drain and the sanitary all included. And all right, now I'll close this for now. Then go to the plan and select the vent that we have. Then right click here and select the draw pipe option. And then using a 45-degree angle, I'll start drawing the pipe which goes to the left of the window and around it. And then we'll have to proceed upwards. So it may protrude in the window itself, but then it goes upwards. Now, in order to fix the issue, I can delete this pipe over here and then create a 45-degree angle on the fitting. And then in order to fix the protruding pipe, we can move the whole pipe system lower so that it's no longer in the window frame itself. And then I'll select the fitting up top and move this one lower as well. And all right, perfect. Now we have a bit of pipe here, which I can delete and then connect the fitting to the vent so that we can be sure. All right, move this a bit lower, Control Z, that's enough for now. And then I'll go up here and select the pipe and put it in the elevation point of 2.8, which is just below the suspended ceiling. Now, in order to see this part, we can take a look at the 3D view of the cut line. And this is exactly the part that we're dissecting. So we can select the pipe here and put the diameter on 50 millimeters. Now let's return back to the plan. And as you can see, this is exactly the part that we're designing. All right. Now after this, I can go to the extend section in the details and change the view range of the top and change the offset of the top itself on 3.2, then apply so that we can see up to a higher level. Then I'll go over here and get a copy of the cut line itself and then move it down here, and I'll select the align tool and lock it with the center of this. Then I'll create a reference plane which goes through the center of this, and then I'll lock the cut line to it. Now I'll open up the cut. All right, so here I'll open up the cut itself and zoom in here. Then I'll select this, right click and select the draw pipe option, and using an upward slope, we'll start drawing, and we go about here and then stop. Now let's just move it up a bit so that we can have it on 2.85 of middle elevation. It's a bit much, so move it back down to 2.83. It'll be fine if it just goes above the expansion points that we have here. So this is exactly the reason why we said we leave the suspended ceiling to after the mechanical part is done, so that we don't run into any issues. Now we actually have a couple of issues in the lower levels which we need to fix later on. Now we may be able to easily fix the higher levels, but the ground floors and the underground floors are going to be a problem. So now I'll go over here because we have a vent right here as well. And all right, so let's see where it is in the 3D view. We go up here and I think it's this point right here. All right, now then we can return back to the plan, and for this part I can align the middle line that we have here with, let's see which line we can find, with the center of this part. All right, then I'll use the draw pipe option. All right, so here we have a vent, So first I'll select the fitting that we have here, and in order to turn it into a three-way fitting, we can actually do that using the type. So let's delete it first. Then I'll select the draw pipe option. Alright, Ctrl Z. Once again, Ctrl Z. Then we can continue the pipe over here, and then a horizontal pipe that goes through it. Alright, then we can delete the pipe so we can keep the fitting. Oh, hit Ctrl Z. I mistakenly moved the link file. In these situations, remember to click on the link file down below so you don't make a mistake. Alright, so then I'll measure this and put it on 40 centimeter fixed. Then I'll select the pipe that we have up top and put it on 50 millimeters of diameter and the type on vent. Then I'll delete that and then disconnect these two, putting the reducer on vent type. Then I can go over here and select draw pipe option. First I'll have to zoom in and click on the circle icon, and then I can select the draw pipe option. So we draw the pipe upwards and then we can select it and put it under vent type. Alright, then I can select the reducer and connect it to our fitting. But just remember that the color of the vent and sanitary are different here, so make sure you don't get them mixed up. So that's one way of differentiating them, and you can control them by going over to the family